You are a propagandist. And you are coming up with these people going to the inauguration. Comedians should be in the back.
Joe Rogan was at the inauguration.
Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn.
But these are proudly independent media, independent broadcasters. Once you turn up at the inauguration of a president, whether Democratic or Republican,
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes. And this Mehdi Hasan conversation with comedian Jenna Friedman is less about a single disputed fact and more about a specific pattern of claims regarding Bill Maher, Joe Rogan, and the relationship between comedy and political power. There's one specific claim here worth checking directly, that Maher's dinner with Trump did not include any pushback on free speech cases involving figures like Mahmoud Khalil, alongside broader characterizations of both men's political trajectories. Hit subscribe because Truth Review checks the claims underneath the commentary. Now let's get into it.
You can speak honestly.
I think that's what comedians should be doing. I think the idea of having presidents on your podcast and political figures running for office, if you want to play that game, that's one thing. If you want to go there and be a journalist, and some of it's like comedians kind of flirting with journalism at the same time that journalists were flirting with comedians, and I say that ironically, we are on a show like that. But then you have to be held to different accounts. If I have a politician on my show, I need to be held to a journalistic standard the same way that if you headlined the DC Improv, I would say, where are all the fucking punchlines? Like if we are going to wait, I'm sure you would. But if we're going to wait in each other's territory, we need to also be held to the same.
We don't have politicians on the show, right? I do another show in another part of this studio where I grill politicians and I wear a suit and tie.
Sure.
But on this show, we're having a chat about comedy. But
I was going to say no tie. I was very disappointed.
I know. People do get disappointed.
That's the problem with this cozying up to these, and suddenly they're being invited to things, and I go, well, then you're not a fucking comedian anymore. You are a propagandist, and you are coming up with these people going to the inauguration. Comedians should be in the back.
Joe Rogan was at the inauguration.
Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn.
But these are proudly independent media, independent broadcasters. Once you turn up at the inauguration of a president, whether Democratic or Republican, how independent are you?
We all know, certainly, and you have to contend with this more than I do, but when you criticize someone publicly, it's harder if you know them. It's harder if you get dinner with them. It's harder if you text them sometimes. And I do not think comedians have the power, the strength to be cozying up, go to the events, drink the wine, hang out, party, go on the jet, and then be honest about their critiques.
You've been very critical of what you call the anti-woke comedy movement. Who are they?
Joe Rogan is certainly the face of it. But I think a shitload of comedian podcasts have been cozying up. Any comedian who has had
and they also pretend to be apolitical, but they're basically platforming the right.
Absolutely. And maybe they went into it. Some comedians got burnt by the woke move, by COVID, everyone being online, people getting in trouble for old jokes. Yeah, Me Too, certainly. And so some of them said, oh, here's a new haven for me. Here's a place where it's, But now that the thing that was like the rebellious group is the fucking president, you're not punk anymore. You're not cool anymore. That's the fucking principle. And you're like going out there, like talking about how cool the principle is and saying that he believes in free speech when he doesn't. That's where I go. You're no longer a comedian. You have to admit what you are is you work for the state in this particular instance. And that's not a comedian. The jester should occasionally, be scared, or politician should not want to be with a comedian. Michelle Wolf was the last person who, like, in a really public setting, it felt like she had the chutzpah to go, I'm going to talk shit, but it's hard.
Yeah, and she got everyone turned on her.
Everyone turned on her.
The media, politicians.
But that's how it should be. Yes. The problem is comedians got too rich, too powerful, too famous, and they didn't contend with it. And now we're watching huge comedians, like, toe the line for the president to go up there and go, hey, he lets you say whatever you want, and he gets mad pussy. And you're like, fuck you. That's so disappointing. You're supposed to be out here critiquing those in power.
You tweeted, it was a great line, I wrote it down. I love how comedians have gone from, it's a big club and you ain't in it, the George Carlin line, to, I've had the club members on my podcast and they're actually really nice, so everyone should just do what they say. Fucking pathetic. Yeah. You tweeted, I assume you talked about...
Was that before Bill Maher? Did I tweet? I feel like...
That was before Bill Maher.
That was before Bill Maher, yeah.
But Rogan, obviously you had Rogan, who is the face of it, as you say. Someone did a little, we should pull it up at some point, but somebody did a kind of grid of like Joe Rogan with Chamath, Joe Rogan with Thiel, Joe Rogan with Musk, Joe Rogan, like all these billionaires. And it's like, huh? Like, as you say, that's the principle. These are the richest men on the planet. And then you're supposed to be making fun of them.
They'll look at Rogan with Bernie and they'll go, look, he kind of agrees with Bernie on this.
10 years ago.
And it's like, yeah, I don't think he has a strict political ideology because he never became a politician. He's just a dude, but he's not analyzing himself or asking himself the question of like, how are these people using me?
Yes.
And I think a lot of comedians, we're about to see with Bill Maher, they really do believe in their soul if I talk to this guy, who knows, maybe I sway him a little. And I go, that's where you've become blind to what people in power do. They do what they want. You're being used. You're being used. And maybe you agree with them on some things. Like, at the end of the day, Bill Maher and Trump have a lot more in common than not. And that's part of the whole thing.
So Bill Maher, just for context for people who aren't aware, who claims to be liberal, I laugh out loud as he says that, he had dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago recently. Let's have a clip. Let's play a clip of Bill talking about how that dinner went.
I told him I thought parts of his plan for Gaza were wacky, but that I had supported him in the idea that Gaza could be Dubai instead of hell. I told him he was wrong when he tweeted the night before that I was critical of all things Trump. Not true. Check the tapes. Moving Israel's embassy to Jerusalem, loved it. The border did need to be controlled. I'm glad the cops are getting their morale back.
Bill Maher, you talk about it wasn't so long ago. He has been the face of the free speech brigade for years.
And by the way, only because it hurt his bottom line.
Hurt his bottom line. And because he doesn't like pro-Palestine people. Israel has always been a strong issue for him. He's one of these guys who likes to be liberal except on Israel.
I'm sure everybody hooks up with this Gen Z, and so he's tired of hearing about their pronouns and whatnot.
But he's been obsessed with the woke left and free speech.
Of course.
And here he is having dinner with the most anti-free speech politician in modern American history.
And pitching it like he is having a conversation, creating dialogue. And I talked about with my podcast co-host, Russell Daniels, his point was like, oh, you want to have a conversation? Then go talk to a Trump supporter in the world. This is just two millionaires having dinner together. You're just having a nice dinner.
Two racist, bigoted billionaires. Bill Maher has his own history of Islamophobia,
of course,
anti-black remarks, etc., etc.
But the idea that he pitched, like his version of saving face, was like we had a dialogue, and it's like, no, you didn't at all. You just had a nice, probably really good dinner and laughed and
when you left, Donald Trump probably chuckled with his advisors. Another one down.
Of course, and I just think people need to look at Bill Maher, talk about bullshit, and just go, okay, this is not a comedian anymore. This is kind of a pseudo-journalist who hides behind the face of comedy, where there's a lot of that these days, both sides, comedians kind of pretend to be journalists and vice versa, and go, based on his own, if you think Trump tried to overturn the election and thwart democracy, if you think that and you purported that, why the fuck would you have dinner with him? And that not be the only thing. You should have walked in and be like, hey, what the fuck, from the get-go.
Yeah.
Not, hey, I kind of like that one thing you did. Didn't love it when you almost tried to destroy the basic tenet of America.
Did he even bring up
He didn't even mention it.
Or Badr Khan Suri or Ramesh Asta, all these people. He's a free speech champion. Aren't these the biggest free speech cases of our time?
Of course, this was the religious guy. This is the guy who went on and on about religion and suddenly is on his own show saying, well, Israel was promised to the Jews in the Bible. Ever heard of it? And you go, that's, again,
the truth. Although you said that he was a comedian until he went to see Trump. I would argue he wasn't a comedian for a long time. He's not been funny for many years.
Sure. I think Norm Macdonald said something like, he's the least funniest person I've ever heard claim to be a comedian. Again, it's just like he uses comedy to disguise that it's just kind of a light political opinion show. And
old school bigotry.
And, a lot of people listen to him. That's what's shocking. I don't know how anyone likes that kind of smarminess.
A lot of his audience nowadays are kind of right-wingers who say, even Bill Maher, he plays that role of, even liberal Bill Maher. You'll see that Fox News Daily Mail headline everywhere. And he validates for a lot of quote-unquote centrists and conservatives. But my point is, what is liberal about him these days?
Of course. But it's just that he has the memory of a goldfish. And he certainly doesn't. I'm sure he's smarter and manipulative in a way, but people have this memory of a goldfish where it's like, who cares if Trump is nice? Who cares if Trump gives you a free hotel room for a week? Who gives a shit?
Let's go through the specific claims made in this conversation, because most of this segment is commentary and characterization rather than discrete factual assertions, but there are a few things worth verifying directly. Start with the Bill Maher dinner itself, because Maher's own public comments about it are quoted directly in the clip and can be checked against his actual statements. Maher publicly described telling Trump that parts of the Gaza plan were, in his words, wacky, while also saying he supported the broader concept, that he corrected Trump's claim about being critical of all things Trump, and that he praised the Jerusalem embassy move and border enforcement. These are Maher's own on-record characterizations of the dinner, made publicly on his own platform, so they represent his own account of what was and wasn't discussed rather than a third-party claim requiring separate verification. The claim that Maher did not raise free speech cases involving people like Mahmoud Khalil during the dinner is presented as an assumption based on Maher's own public recounting of the conversation, since Maher did not mention discussing those cases in his own description of the dinner. This is a reasonable inference from the fact that Maher's own summary of what he raised does not include those topics, though it's worth noting this is drawn from absence in his account, rather than from a direct denial or confirmation that the topic never came up at all during a private dinner. The characterization of Trump as, in this exchange's words, the most anti-free speech politician in modern American history is a strong claim that reflects a specific interpretation of Trump's public statements and actions regarding press credentials, broadcast licenses, and litigation against media organizations. This is a documented pattern of behavior. Trump has publicly discussed pulling broadcast licenses from networks and has pursued legal action against several media outlets, but characterizing it as the most anti-free speech position in modern American history is a comparative judgment rather than a single verifiable fact, and reasonable people can disagree with that specific superlative while still acknowledging the underlying pattern of documented actions it's based on. The claim about Joe Rogan's guest history, that he has hosted a series of billionaire tech figures, including specific individuals mentioned in this clip, reflects Rogan's publicly available guest list, which is a matter of public record anyone can verify by checking his published episode catalog. The broader characterization of what that pattern means, whether it reflects a lack of consistent political ideology or something else, is an interpretation of that guest list rather than a separate factual claim requiring its own verification. Most of what's said in this exchange falls into the category political and cultural commentary and interpretation rather than discrete, checkable facts. And that's worth naming directly, because not every claim in a debate needs a source. Some of it is genuinely just two people offering their read on a public figure's public behavior, and treating opinion as something requiring a citation misrepresents what's actually being said. Subscribe to Truth Review. We separate the checkable facts from the commentary, and we tell you plainly which parts of any conversation are verifiable claims and which parts are just perspective.